All right, so here we go. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us at Secular AZ today. We are a nonprofit organization focused on protecting the Constitution and the separation of church and state for over a decade now. We do have some incredible programming, including our Friday updates like today, but we have it from all kinds of amazing speakers, including historians, authors, elected officials, journalists, etc. In the coming weeks, we're actually going to be doing a series about Arizona's criminal justice system and have some conversations about prison labor and how it's used, who uses it, private prisons and whether they should be legal, and what it's like for an inmate in Arizona's prison, as well as the two-tiered criminal justice system, just to name a few. So I hope that in the coming weeks you sign up for our Friday events. You always learn something. Now, today, as you all know, the 2023 Arizona legislative session has begun, and I'm so happy to see that there are so many serious bills tackling the tough issues like affordable housing, access to healthcare, and water conservation. Just kidding. I mean, the very first bill that dropped this session was about pronouns, and there are currently 3 bills blocking and limiting drag performances in Arizona, including SB 1026, which would not allow for state monies to foster any kind of drag shows. But what that means in reality is that high schools and colleges would not be able to perform shows like Hairspray or Rent. SB 1028 would limit adult cabaret performances and prohibit the locations in which they could actually perform. And then SB 1030 is all about drag performers, drag shows, and the regulation, including the hours of operation that facilities that, put together these drag shows would even be allowed to put on these drag shows. So today, I am so excited to be speaking to one of Arizona's most popular and successful drag performers, Richard Stevens, aka Barbra Seville. You might have seen Barbra a time or two. She is Arizona's #1 drag performer and has been delighting audiences from coast to coast for over 2 decades. When she takes the stage or your screen in a flurry of feathers and foam rubber, lipstick and lashes, gowns and gams, you are in for a ride. As the founder of Barbra Seville's Wonderful 100 and a former Miss Phoenix Pride and a dancing alum, she's raised almost $1 million for LGBTQ and HIV causes. Her award-winning Barbra Seville show has been called a must-see by visitphoenix.com. She recently made worldwide headlines when she exposed Carrie Lake's hypocritical stance on LGBTQ positions and the art of female impersonation. You can follow her on Instagram, Facebook, but if it's really important, make sure you message her on Venmo.
No shame. I have no shame. That is shameless. I'm almost embarrassed.
You should not be embarrassed because, as we were just talking about how difficult it is to be a gig worker, it's not consistent. And especially during COVID, it was extremely inconsistent. So feel free to be shameless this Friday with us. And is there anything that I missed from your bio that you might like to add? Because, I know that you're about to compete on a national stage. So if you want to talk about that, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm packing. Literally, I took a break from packing to put this drag on to talk to you. I'm leaving on a Sunday morning to Little Rock, Arkansas, home of their own drag proposals for Miss Gay America. So wish me luck on that. It's a Tuesday to Friday, me and 44 other contestants from across the country, and trying to bring it home to Arizona.
That's fantastic. And wait, where did you say that is again? I'm sorry.
Little Rock, Arkansas.
You know what? It's funny because it seems like a lot of times these national competitions are in places like Tennessee and Arkansas. And is that purposeful?
Well, drag is huge in the South. And competitive drag is huge in the South. But I think it's just a financial matter. I think somebody made him an offer. Somebody said, hey, we can host it here and make it easier for everybody. And actually, you know what? Little Rock is a really beautiful city, and it's a liberal city, and it's a blue spot in a red state. And I've been there several times. I've performed there. I went there last year to watch the competition. It's a beautiful city, really is.
Yeah, you know, my grandmother, she retired in Arkansas. This is years and years ago. I mean, she was in a really rural area. It was called Hardy, Arkansas, right on the other side of the Missouri border. I wouldn't say it was at all a blue area. Again, I was a child when I would go visit her, but yeah, I've actually heard people say that you know, some of these larger cities in the South are lovely, but then what ends up happening, you know, you're just this blue bastion and, you know, swallowed up by a sea of red.
You know, the city of Little Rock, like I said, I was there last year to watch the contest, and they lit the Arkansas River Bridge in rainbow lights to welcome the Miss Gay America pageant to Little Rock. When we got to the airport, there were banners that, you know, welcomed us. So, I mean, it was kind of cool. You know, I got to give them a little more credit. It is the home of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I don't think she'll be there.
And her first, you know, her first promise to the people of Arkansas is to do away with the term Latinx. Yeah. So glad to see that she's also focused on the issues that affect everyday Americans.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I know that you're not a historian or anything, but can we just talk about the fact that drag has been around since like forever? And you know, give some context to this. I mean, I know for me as a former English teacher, what I think of is Shakespeare, right? And the fact that back in those days, women were not allowed to have a role on the stage. And so what did the men have to do? So I'd like to hear kind of your take about, you know, and again, I know you're not a historian. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you could maybe just kind of talk a little bit about how drag has been part of just about every culture in the world since the beginning of time, that would be great.
Well, it was actually my idea. I was talking to my friend Billy Shakespeare, and I said, you know, why don't you put a boy in the show? But no, it has. It's documented everywhere. It's been a part of human culture forever. It's been a source of entertainment. It's been a source of intrigue. It's been a source of fascination. It's well documented. And even if you just look into, if we want to just look at the United States and American culture, it's been a part of our culture long before I was ever part of it, you know. And if you think about it, you've been surrounded by drag your whole life, whether it's Bugs Bunny dressing up in a cartoon, whether it's Fred and Barney dressing up in drag on the Flintstones, whether it's I Love Lucy. It's been there. It wasn't my idea. It hasn't hurt anybody. It's been in some of these favorite television shows, some of your favorite movies, these family-friendly things, whether it's a musical like Hairspray or Mrs. Doubtfire, or even something that might be viewed as a little more transgressive, you know, something like The Crying Game, or anything that is a little more taboo, perhaps, as opposed to just a straight man in a dress. Making a, you know, for a cheap laugh. But drag's been around forever. People have enjoyed it. It's definitely woven into the fabric of our culture. And it's, to quote Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada, it's comical to me that that this is such a thing all of a sudden. But, you know, people in my community, you know, in the LGBT community, we're used to this. We're used to every couple of years, every election cycle or so, being a football or a prop or a boogeyman, whether it was gay marriage or transgender restrooms. You know, people keep going back to that well. And if you've ever been to a concert, you know the number one rule is sing the greatest hits. And this is a Republican greatest hit.
Unfortunately for all the rest of us too, because again, you know, as a voter in Arizona, as a one-time candidate, well, several-time candidate in Arizona, I would much rather see the actual issues that I care about, that my neighbors care about, that my family members care about, you know, things like water conservation. And what are we going to do with this 21% decrease in water usage? And the people in the, what is it, the Rio Verde Valley or whatever, over in like North Scottsdale, far to the east, their water rights have now been cut off.
Right.
We're talking about what will happen to Arizona when we go to the tap one day and the water's running out. But no, we have legislators like Anthony Kern, who was, by the way, left the El Mirage police force, in massive scandal, who for some reason got reelected. He was also at the January 6th insurrections. He's one of the sponsors of these bills. It just really doesn't make sense to me. And it seems like, this is, again, they're going for these whistle words to motivate their base. When the 2022 midterm elections were going on, what did we hear about? We heard about crime. We heard about the border. We heard about inflation. Now we're really not talking about that, and we pivoted.
Stolen elections, don't forget those.
Right.
I mean,
And
that's
I
a big
think that
thing.
even Arizonans have a stolen election fatigue at this point. That was my experience in talking with
When you've
people.
exhausted these people, you've really drained that well. I had the honor to attend the inauguration of the executive branch last week, literally a week ago yesterday. I saw Republicans take the oath. I saw Democrats take the oath. I heard the mayor of Mesa give an incredible speech, and whether it was the treasurer, whether it was the superintendent of public instruction, whether it was the governor, the secretary of state, the attorney general, these people were talking about the issues that you brought up, water, bringing jobs to Arizona, retaining talent in Arizona, election integrity. I sat there, I think the whole thing was about 2 hours, and I never heard the word drag queen while I was there. So it really blew me away for Friday morning to have that happen on the first day of the work of the Arizona people.
Yeah. Well, and I want to take a moment to just invite everybody who's either here on the webinar, or perhaps if you're watching on Facebook. I see a few people watching on Facebook. If you have questions, please go ahead and drop them into either one of those chats. I have a few questions of my own to kind of kick us off. And the first thing I want to know, and that's probably on the mind of a lot of people, because my impression is that you and, former newsreader and failed GOP gubernatorial candidate Carrie Lake.
I call her private citizen Carrie Lake.
That's a good one too. I like that, and she was really great at reading the news. And, props to her on that. We all grew up with her. But did you get any kind of warning from newsreader and failed gubernatorial candidate Carrie Lake that she was going to come out against drag? Did she reach out to you personally?
No. And she and I were in touch. We stayed in touch during the pandemic. I had congratulated her on entering the field for the governor's race. At one point, I thought, oh, Carrie Lake that I know, that'd be awesome. Maybe she does have some Republican opinions or points of view financially, but I know socially how she identifies and how she behaves. So I wasn't too alarmed by it. And someone sent me her now infamous tweet that said they took the flags out of the school and put up a rainbow flag. They took out God and brought in drag queens. So I screenshotted it and I texted her and I was like, hey, what is this about? No answer. I called her, no answer. Finally, I went to Facebook, and this is where I knew something was rotten. She and I had been friends on Facebook for 10, 12, 15 years, and there was no paper trail anymore. Like she had blocked me on Facebook. So not only were we not friends, when you block someone, you also lose your history with them. So our messages were gone. And I was like, oh, wow. So she really did this on purpose. She knew what she was doing. And I had forgotten that she had messaged me from her personal page, which was her Carrie Halpern page. Jeff Halpern is her husband. And so I still had access to those. So I screenshotted all those. And when I realized that she wasn't going to talk to me about it, that's when I went ahead and tweeted it and Instagrammed it. And I'll be honest with you, I I thought maybe the New Times would be interested in it. I thought maybe like the Capital Times might cover it. And no one picked it up for about almost like 36 hours. And I thought, oh, well, whatever. And then the next day, like my phone had died overnight because the messages just kept coming in and the calls kept coming in, and it started trending worldwide. And, then of course she served me with legal papers at a drag brunch. And
I wish I had been at that drag brunch, because I know you. I've seen you perform live on many occasions, and so I know how you can really pivot and be just that great MC. So I want to know, when that happened, did you just have to kind of keep your game face on, or did you say, oh, like what? How did that go down?
It actually happened right before the brunch started, and I actually had a little bit of a breakdown. I actually started crying because it freaked me out. But then I read it and I was like, no, this is ridiculous. There's no merit to this. Even me, as just, someone who has no law experience or anything, I knew that what I said was true. I knew that what I said could be proven. I knew that I had the receipts. And so after a little bit of a temporary breakdown, yeah, I messed it up. I brought it into the show and really rallied those people and really motivated them. And it was one of the best brunches I've ever had.
I bet, because, I mean, one of the most, I would say, like, activist communities in my experience, and this is just my anecdotal experience going to the Capitol, trying to lobby with some of these legislators, whatever the bill may be, whether it's anti-trans, whether it's anti-gay marriage, whether it's now suddenly the new vogue of, anti-drag bills. The members of the LGBTQ community show up. And so I would imagine that those folks who attend your brunches, for the most part, are people who at the very least vote, and perhaps even go out there and canvass or make phone calls or give money to candidates that they know will support them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap. The brunches that I do, they tend to serve more of a heterosexual community. The gays see the drag all the time everywhere. Drag brunch has really resonated with straight people and wine moms and bachelorette parties and things like that. And so it's been interesting to have them appreciate the art and then understand that, hey, I know these people, they're not doing anything wrong. And hey, what can I do? I've seen people really sort of ally themselves with us when you explain it to them. We all live in our own little world, and we're not always aware of what this community is facing or what that pressing issue is. But, sometimes in the middle of an entertaining show, I'll stop it and, spit a few hard facts. And it's sobering to some people.
I remember it would have been, probably almost a year ago now. And a friend invited me to your drag brunch. Was it at Rebar, maybe something like that? Probably. And I was late, and I walk in, and you're like, "Oh, Jeannie, oh look, it's no problem. You're 20 minutes late, blah blah blah. What were you up to?" Getting ready to roast me, and I was like, "Well, I was actually doing an interview at Democracy for America." And you were like, "Oh God, were you out feeding Ukrainian children as well?"
That sounds like me.
It's very much you. Again, if you've never seen Richard, aka Barbra Seville, perform, he has a very extensive schedule, and you can find him just about anywhere in Maricopa County. But let's talk more about like the serious nature of this, because these folks, with their hateful rhetoric and their vitriol that they spew on whatever social media channel they have, has real consequences. And, just this past year, we saw what happened in Colorado Springs. I mean, several years ago in Florida, these people's words have consequences. And so I'm curious, what effect has this violent rhetoric had on the drag scene in Arizona?
I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen much of it. I haven't seen a lot of trickle down from that specifically. The clubs that we perform in, they take our safety seriously, and they can sense when something is awry for the most part. So I haven't had a lot of fallout from that exactly. But what I can tell you is, as a gay kid who grew up in Phoenix, I can tell you how unvalued I felt when legislators and talk show hosts would use the LGBT community to score points or to take cheap shots. I can tell you what it did to my self-esteem. I can tell you how it made me feel, and it wasn't good. I tell people all the time that, I grew up in the AIDS crisis, and in addition to gay men just dying, like an entire generation, in addition to that, I heard all the hate that people had for those people. I heard all the hate that people had for LGBTQ people. So between the AIDS crisis, and then if you ever saw a gay person on TV or on Oprah Winfrey, it's because they were getting kicked out of their house. It's because their community had turned their back on them. It's because they'd gotten beat up on the side of the street. So I really grew up, Jeannie, thinking that I would never live to be 30. I grew up never thinking that the dreams that I had for myself could come true, because I never saw a place for myself, because there was just this constant barrage of negative messaging and finger pointing and blaming. So I just never believed that anything would be out there for me. And that's what I worry about now when I hear this kind of stuff. That's what I worry about, is the kid who doesn't have access to a gay youth group. I worry about the kid that maybe doesn't have complete freedom on the internet to look up what they want or find resources or meet people like them. And all they hear is these horrible things. And it breaks my heart, and you see those people leave their homes, you see those people leave their communities. And that's how we end up where I think I'm correct here, that an LGBTQ teenager is 4 times more likely to be homeless than a cisgender straight youth. They're more likely to end up being taken advantage of on the streets. They're more likely to drop out of school. They're more likely to find themselves fighting substance addictions. They're more likely to it's just a rougher life for those people, because that messaging is constant and it's damaging. And so when you see elected officials take those pot shots, and you see your favorite singer saying, yeah, I agree with that, all that does is hurt people. That's all it does.
Yeah, for real. And, for me as a former middle school and high school teacher, especially concerning last legislative session was some of the legislation that was that folks were trying to push through. Specifically, there was HB 2161 that would have forced teachers like me to out their LGBTQ students, at least in its original form of the bill. I mean, eventually there had to be an amendment, but the question remains, why was that in there in the first place?
Right.
Thankfully, groups like 1 in 10 and Human Rights Campaign and all the Listen and some of these other groups stepped up and were able to lobby to at least get that amendment added. But even little things, like I had a survey for my students working in Title I schools. Title I schools mean that the majority of our kids are facing, issues related to poverty, that they don't necessarily have a stable home, that oftentimes I might be the only caring adult. So in my surveys, to get to know my students better, I just needed to know a few things. Like, and it wasn't, I was very diplomatic about it, but it might be like, you know, how many people live in your house? Because I would find out through those surveys that there would be 9 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And so when I had a question about why a kid couldn't do their homework, it's like, oh, well, there's no quiet, well-lit place for them to do their homework. And by the way, their parents work 2 jobs, so that means they're babysitting at night. So now I understand and could provide some kind of solution for them to be able to do their homework. I can no longer, if I were still in the classroom, I wouldn't be able to say, hey, what are your preferred pronouns? You know, that would be against the law, and it would be something that I could be fired, fined, or even decertified, lose my certification. And I've had students who've come to me before and told me that, that they were gay or bi, and that please don't tell my parents because I don't know where I'll sleep at night. And I have had students who have even been threatened by their own family members for their sexual orientation or their gender identity. And so, like, I'm a big advocate for parents' rights. I believe that I should be able to advocate for my kids, but the way that it's going down right now is like only a certain group of parents, those who identify with some extremist, conservative, evangelical political ideology are in, from what I can see, the only parents who deserve rights. So these are life and death issues. And, we've both seen what happens to folks. I mean, I think about, drag mothers and drag families and how they come to be. And like, I'm a big RuPaul fan, full disclosure, but she often says, we get to create our own families. And it's not because they didn't want to belong in the families that they were born into. It's that those families rejected them.
Correct.
So
Correct.
let me switch gears just a little bit. So I'm curious too, if you're comfortable talking about it, since all this happened and you were getting national attention, did you personally receive any threats to your own well-being?
Yeah, I got a lot of crank messages. They were typically people from people that don't live here. It was a lot of people who were just following the campaign. And when famous people say don't read the comments, you should never read the comments. People get really vicious in the comments, but the comments are pretty, they're separate from you. But I got a few people managed to get in touch with me personally through Instagram direct messages or Twitter DMs or Facebook. And then at one point, Sheriff Penzone's office reached out to me because they were like, hey, what are you doing about this? Are you protecting yourself? And that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is a little more serious than I knew. And thank goodness nothing ever really happened, other than messages and a few threats online. But I reported those things. And
I mean, still scary though, nonetheless. I'm with Secular AZ, have been with Secular AZ for just over a year now, but I wear many hats. I sat on my school board for 8 years, from 2012 to 2020. In 2020, I actually ran for Maricopa County School Superintendent. Richard was kind enough to host a drag bingo event for me that was extremely successful. I still am grateful for that. And then this most recent election cycle, I decided to run for state senate. And there was a group who spent a lot of money on mailers about congressional term limits. And I think that probably most people in the United States would be in favor of congressional term limits, but this is a kind of a different extremist thing. They put my cell phone number on their flyers. And suddenly I had conspiracy theorists calling me at all hours of the day, and being an executive director as well as a candidate, I would have to take calls from numbers that I didn't know. And suddenly I'd have people accusing me of being a Satan worshiper who drinks the blood of babies for the adrenochrome. And so it's
And
a
we
huge
don't. We drink it for the taste.
I mean, I don't even know what that is, but these folks believe it in their hearts. Like, you are this kind of a monster. And that, you know, there's like space aliens who are controlling stuff. But it's such a violation. I mean, as public people, we expect that we're going to be confronted by people. You know, you're going to have, I've heard drag queens talk about it a lot too, especially with bachelorette shows and the liberties that sometimes people will take without asking any kind of consent about what you're comfortable with. So, I mean, like, you know that that's going to happen, but at the very least in those settings, you have the stage to be able to say, all right, bachelorettes, I'm going to give you a few ground rules. Here's what you can do and here's what you can't do. You can't do that when somebody publishes your phone number. So were people trying to dox you or anything?
No, it never came down to that. I would say the most disturbing thing that happened is I was doing a show one night and I got a direct message on I think it was Facebook, and it was a picture of me earlier that night, you know, a picture from like 4 or 5 minutes ago. And they were like, "This you at Charlie's? We've been looking for you," you know. And I was like, that kind of freaked me out for a second. And then just the Facebook algorithm worked out for me. Because like when I scrolled a little bit, one of my friends had just posted that picture and I knew that it was their picture. So this person wasn't really there, but they were trying to intimidate me and trying to make me think that I should watch my back and, you know, be careful leaving, when it was in fact, you know, just a friend that was like, "Hey girl, here's a picture tonight, you know, love this number." But no, that was probably the most invasive, and it wasn't even that bad, you know, so.
Well, good. I'm really glad to hear that, because I worry about people who put themselves out there. You know, Governor Hobbs has talked about her need for security during the election. And because she's got a twin sister, her twin sister needed security as well, because what these people like the Carrie Lakes, the Blake Masters, the Mark Finchams, the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, I would hope they don't realize it, just because it seems so monstrous if they do realize it, but their words have consequences, and their followers believe everything they say to the point that they will take matters into their own hands.
I will say, I thought that Carrie was the most reckless in that interview on Fox News where she talked about me. And I really thought that was dog whistling her listeners and her fans and her supporters. Give this guy a hard time. He's a bad, like, she called me shady and unreliable and like a grifter. And it blew me away. It blew me away.
And the hardest part nowadays for people like you and me, right? You know, I'm an English teacher. And so I believe that we need to have reliable sources. I used to teach my students, you know, like, this is how you can tell if something is a reliable source. And so to throw these things out as if they are fact is so dangerous. And you know, I don't know, there are consequences beyond their tiny little world that they don't even seem to care about, as long as it projects them further into whatever it is that they are trying to do.
Oh yeah, now they can send out fundraising appeals on the topic, you know. And that's, to me, when I read about Kern and who's the other guy?
Kavanaugh.
When I read I was like, these guys, number one, know these bills don't have any chance of becoming a law while Governor Hobbs is in office. But that doesn't matter to them. What matters to them is we're talking about it. What matters to them is now they can send out a fundraising email that says, unhinged liberal Jeannie Cassine and Richard Stevens are doing X, Y, and Z, and now people want to send them money because they're supporting it. What is this Q&A thing right there?
Oh, there's a Q&A. Great. Let's see what it is, because I had another question lined up, but let's see. This one comes from Kirk. It says, can you talk about the hatred that the anti-LGBTQ crowd experiences? Wait, can you talk about the hatred that the anti-LGBTQ crowd experiences? Where do you think that hate is coming from? I think perhaps what Kirk means is, can you talk about the hatred that the LGBTQ, unless they're absolutely serious about this, but I don't know. I mean, it could be a typo. Who knows? Kirk, if you want to, explain that, I'd be all ears.
There are some people who are perpetually aggrieved. They're always being wronged, and they're always the victim in any situation. And if that's what he meant, and hopefully he didn't, but if that is what he meant, I can understand, and I have compassion for people who the world is changing too much for them. I understand that. Like, I get it, and I feel for you in some ways. But you know what? There has been a small group of people that have had all of the power and their comfort placed at the forefront for too long, while other people, other minorities, other disenfranchised communities, other people with limited income, people who don't speak English as a first language, they've constantly been othered, and they've constantly been pushed to the back, and they've constantly been told, you don't fit in, you're the exception, this is what's going on here. And if those people are uncomfortable, and if those people are feeling attacked, good.
I mean, yeah, and the thing is, if you feel persecuted as someone who feels like it's your privilege, I guess, or your right to hate on the LGBTQ community, well, you know what? Don't go to drag shows. Mm-hmm. Don't go to the Pride Parade. Don't go to the Rainbows Festival. Don't befriend anybody who belongs to or advocates or is an ally for that community, because at the end of the day, each and every one of us is allowed to live our lives, whatever that life is. And, if part of your lifestyle is hating on other people, go ahead. You're more than welcome to hate on them in the privacy of your own home. Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't have a lot of affection or respect for really organized religion and some of the things that they do. And so, you know what I do, Jeannie, is I don't go to those churches. You know what I do is I don't send them money. You know what I do is I turn it off when it comes on my television. I don't feel the need to go there and tell them that they shouldn't exist. I don't feel the need to occupy space in their chat rooms and tell them how wrong they are. I just say, you do you. I'm gonna do me over here.
Yeah, I basically have the same approach, because I too am not a huge fan of most organized religions. Every once in a while, I enjoy talking to people who do attend church and hearing their perspectives, but as long as it's in an inclusive and informative way and not in a hateful, misogynistic, bigoted, exclusionary way. So
power grabbing way, yeah,
it's weird. So I'm curious too, because I do know that you have connections all over the United States. And I'm thinking especially in places like, oh gosh, like, at least here in Arizona, we had a few victories, right? We have a governor who's got a mighty veto pen right now. Like, all this conversation that you and I are having, it's great, it's informative. But we know that if it actually makes it out of both chambers in the House and the Senate of our legislature, Katie Hobbs is going to be there with her veto pen. Now, other states like, say, Oklahoma, Missouri, Tennessee, I believe, as another one. So I'm curious, you've talked a little bit about, people reaching out to you and saying hateful things to you, but what is it like for your colleagues in these much more conservative places where where it's maybe a super majority in the legislature, and on top of that, they have a governor who also, buys into this hateful rhetoric?
Well, my experience is a lot of those people just aren't engaged, and they're just not aware of what's going on. There's a line in The Handmaid's Tale where she says, you would be boiled alive before you ever even realized the water was warming up. And that's how it is for a lot of people. They just aren't engaged. They're not going to know something happened until they go to that bar or they go to that brunch and it's been closed down. I am an optimist, and I don't think these bills have a lot of merit. I don't think that they have the strength these people think that are behind them. I don't think that they're ultimately enforceable. And I believe that, let's say Arkansas passes the craziest one of all and it gets approved, enforcing it looks really dicey to me. I think that it's stuff that would constantly be appealed. I don't think higher courts would stand by some of these things, because look at you. You're wearing a double-breasted jacket. Is that menswear?
The funny thing is, I follow this woman who ran for, I think, state house or Senate in Missouri. Piper from Missouri is her Twitter handle. Shout out to her, because she's a rural Missourian who, is a former educator, very pro public education, pro the LGBTQ community, and just a real progressive. And she posted something yesterday about how the House or Senate, whatever, the state legislature, is trying to enforce that women need to wear blazers instead of cardigans. And if we look at some of these bills in Arizona, saying about, you have to dress the way that, whatever matches with your biological sex on your birth certificate. Like, am I now going to be forced to wear skirts? Where do we draw the lines on our freedom of expression and our ability to be able to be whoever we are? Growing up, I was always called a tomboy. I never wanted to wear a skirt. I always wanted to play with the boys. I even played on the boys' basketball team when I was in 8th grade, simply because the school was too small to form a girls' league. Now, with some of these bills, I would not have been allowed to play at all. And wouldn't that be a violation of Title IX? So, I just need to know when it all stops. And you just bring up a really good point. So I just hope that your friends who are in those more conservative states, and hard to imagine more conservative than Arizona, I just hope that they're all safe and that the folks who care about them are supporting them.
Well, yeah, that's a good wish for everyone. I agree.
Because it does come down to support. And while we all, oh wait, hold on. It looks like we got a couple of comments here. And I did in the chat, I put up a spreadsheet that's shared by a person that I follow on Twitter. Her name is Alejandra something or Alexandra something, I can't remember. But she created a spreadsheet that tracks all of the anti-LGBTQ legislation that is happening at the state level. So whether it's about drag shows, about pronouns, about gender affirming care, et cetera, et cetera. So you can click on that link. But after that, I see Catherine is saying, oh, Livingston, he's one of our state representatives, I believe. He was quoted as saying that bills are being brought forward to just show that they are in charge.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. It's a lot of flexing. It's a lot of posing. It's a lot of just signaling. And to me, my cynical point on that is, they've got an eye on the dollar down the road, and crazy politics are fashionable now. The more extreme you are, the more apt you are to get picked up to be on Tucker Carlson or to be whatever fringe network Carrie Lake loves. Steve Bannon wants you to fill in for him tonight because you're just crazy enough for his listeners. It's the whole thing is insane to me. And, I still believe in a lot of the possibilities. By the way, follow me on Twitter if you don't, anybody. My Twitter is mostly dedicated to politics. My Instagram is pretty promotional for drag. My Facebook is me just talking a lot of crap. But on Twitter, I share a lot of stuff, and that's my political stuff. I love that. Oh, we have another Q&A. What is that?
So this Q&A says, hold on, I just had it up. Okay, I see fear. This is again from Kirk. So I think Kirk was, we assumed correctly that Kirk wasn't trying to stir the pot or anything like that.
Gotcha.
He says, I see fear and hatred at the root of anti-gay people. I'm asking why you think this is the case. Where does this fear and hatred come from? Oh boy, I can't wait for your answer because I know what mine is.
It's a fear of losing control. It's a fear of losing power. It's a fear of not having control over people. There's also, the church bred homophobia. And to me, that even comes down to money as well. It just comes down to, if people start, I just saw this chat thing too. If people start thinking for themselves, they're not going to come in here and tithe. And if people start living by their own moral compass, they won't need me to tell them what to do. If they learn that the golden rule is enough for them, there's no reason for them to come in and give me money on that collection plate or whatever. I just noticed the chat thing down here too. I didn't see that. Oh, these are all your links. I see. There we go.
We've been putting up a few links just to the bills themselves. I think that if we have anything related to Barbara Seville, so if you could share Richard Stevens / Barbara Seville's social media links so folks can kind of see what they talk about on a regular basis, that would be great too. So I don't know if you have access to those at the moment, Lindsay, but I think, Richard, you're spot on, really. You're spot on, because there is this desperate grasp, right? And I don't know about you, but I keep hearing all the time about this idea of alpha males, right? And alpha males do this, but they don't do that. And alpha males do this, but they don't do that. And it seems to be coming from this last desperate grasp at like patriarchal control and toxic masculinity. And no matter where you are, it exists and it seeps through. I mean, I think of so last time I was it was Rainbows Festival, right? At Heritage Square. Who was there but the Log Cabin Republicans, right? Mm-hmm. And for those of you who don't know, the Log Cabin Republicans are Republicans who identify as LGBTQ, but they staunchly support Republican policies and legislature, and support conservative candidates. I mean, just this past midterm cycle, we elected a candidate from LD4 who is openly gay and in a committed partnership, but still is part of the party that increasingly seems to want to erase his identity and his ability to live his own life. Have you ever engaged with any of those folks, Richard? I'm curious.
Of course I have. And it's a battle to maintain those friendships. And because, I don't ever want to be as intolerant as some other people, but there are some things that I do think we are intolerant about. A lot of things. I think it's okay to be intolerant about cruelty to children. I'm not tolerant of somebody who abuses women. I'm not tolerant of someone who games the system. I'm not tolerant of someone who speaks to your deepest fears as part of political ambition. I'm not tolerant of those things. and some of those Republican people, I struggle to, that's all I'll say is I struggle to understand, because I do want to understand, because I want people to understand me. Somebody there in the chat had mentioned that the people that are yelling the loudest about these things are usually the ones that come out with a problem regarding it. And how many times have we seen that? Anti-gay legislators found in compromising positions, or payoffs to sex workers. And that's one of the reasons that when everything took off with Carrie, that I never just shut up, because the lawyer that was advising me, he was like, hey, you can do two different things here. You can, you made your point. You can go away now. You landed some blows, or you can keep this up. You can keep speaking up. And I said, you know what? Let's do that. Let's keep speaking up, because I'm not the only person with a story like this. And if I can expose Carrie's hypocrisy and the fact that she had me entertained for her kids, someone else has a story just like that, about that state senator that's sponsoring X, Y, or Z. But turns out that on Saturday nights at 2 a.m, he's down here doing X, Y, or Z. Or turns out that this one here, this person who's all about protecting children from pronouns in schools, are up on Grindr looking to have sex with trans women or trans men, or these people are out there. And I think the more that you expose them, the more that you tell their truths, number one, they can stop being ashamed. They can do whatever it is that they need to do if it's not hurting anyone. But also, it just really shows you that those houses are built on quicksand.
Yeah, and I do believe that a root for all of this. I mean, thankfully, my parents had basically abandoned organized religion by the time I came around. I'm the baby of the family, so I didn't have to do a lot of the Sunday school or catechism stuff that my kids, or that my older sisters had to do. But it stems from a lot of that. We talk to at Secular AZ, and many of our board members come from these very conservative, evangelical religions, where every movement was controlled, where boys were expected to act a certain way, where girls were expected to act a certain way. There wasn't any kind of spectrum of gender identity or of gender roles or anything. It was like, okay, you're born into this faith and you are, you have XY chromosomes. Well, guess what? This is your role. Or you have XX chromosomes, this is your role. And that's it. That's all you can do. And I follow a bunch of people who talk about that. And so escaping that, and before you get to the point where you escape that, you're probably filled with shame. That was never my experience, because I wasn't raised with any kind of, hyper evangelical faith. But I've talked to people who have, and they talk about the turmoil. Not only that, but like they would be essentially shunned from their entire family and their entire community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the self-loathing, the desperation, the shame, the just the feeling like you're a square peg in a round hole. It's not a great way to go through life. It really isn't.
No, and our mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health take a beating for it.
Well, and then so many people act out in another way.
Right.
They'll act out in a way that isn't healthy, because if they could have just been there. Did you watch the Whitney Houston movie? I Want to Dance with Somebody?
Not yet. No.
It's really good. It deals very openly with her relationship with Robin Crawford. And it shows that Whitney had grown up pretty rough around the edges. And that's exactly right, Alex. You can be anything you want that fits into these parameters. But it also shows that she was in a committed and healthy relationship with this woman. And then when she was discovered, they were like, hey, put that away. Hey, grow your hair out. Hey, stop talking like that. Hey, don't wear that. And if they had let Whitney just be Whitney, she probably would be with us, and she'd probably still be singing and, bringing joy to people. But no, we had to bring her down, and we had to tell her to not wear her hair that way, and to not bring her girlfriend in public, and to don't use those words, and you're a princess. And that's something they keep saying in this movie, and I'm like, she can't be a princess, she has to be this to be a prince. The whole thing is insane, and it's just true on everything. It's true with your when you can't fully be yourself, it's never going to lead to positive things.
And I do my best to understand my privilege every space that I walk into. I am a working middle class, raised by working class folks. I consider myself a working middle class white woman, right? And I have certain privileges. We all have certain privileges, but it makes me think, I constantly try to put myself into the position of somebody who doesn't share my privileges. I need to know what it's like to, without ever really fully understanding, but that's why I'll do my best to read, what is it like to walk in a residential neighborhood of mostly white people as a person of color? What is it like as a member of the LGBTQ community to have to think about whether they're going to hold the hands of their life partner for fear of some kind of retribution? And I just wish, and now we also have had bills that are limiting people's access to literature. And literature is one of the best ways to build empathy. Had I not read, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings or The Bluest Eye, I wouldn't have as deep of an understanding, or Between the World and Me. Like, it's important for us to be able to have access to those. And the fact that they're trying to erase those authors' voices and remove those books from the shelves, to erase amazing performers and advocates like you from the local scene, or to prohibit someone's ability to record the police or to protest or whatever. This is, I think this is one Friday, Richard, actually, where we can have some hope, because what they're doing this time around with this legislation is showing us that they have nothing left. And so they are trying to punch down on vulnerable communities. But guess what? The vast majority of the people in the United States, I think, support the LGBTQ community. They know somebody, they love somebody, they have a child, they have a parent, they have a cousin, they have a teacher, a colleague, whatever. And so this is their last showy kind of gas at, like, this is what we're trying to do with all of you. What do you think about that?
It's a great way to look at it. I hope you're right. But I will say, I remember during the Clinton-Trump election, when that was so divisive, I remember saying that. I was like, you know what, this is the last gap. I remember literally using that phrase. I was like, this is like a death rattle. That's why these people are so worked up, is because they realize that their days are numbered, and that way of life is quickly coming to a close. And we saw that wasn't necessarily the case. But I like your point of view, and I'm gonna. It ties into how I like to look at the world, which is, with optimism and hope. And I like to think that people have the same intentions that I do. I'm proven wrong a lot, but it doesn't stop me from looking at the world through that prism.
Well, and I'm just so grateful for you. I've been entertained by you on so many different occasions. So real quick, you will be in Little Rock. Is it this weekend or next weekend?
I'm leaving Sunday morning, I'll be in the air 36 hours from now, 48 hours. I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. So I'm leaving Sunday morning.
And this is Miss Gay America, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Congratulations on that. And we wish you the best of luck. So I would assume that this weekend you don't have any live performances here in the Valley coming up.
I have brunch tomorrow at Copper Blues. That's my last show before I leave. And then everything else is packed. It's sitting all right there.
Oh, good. I was going to say, I hope you're packed, because I can't even imagine how much you have to pack.
It's ridiculous. And I've spent an obscene amount of money.
Okay. Now, so let's get to that. What is your Venmo?
Oh, no, that wasn't a segue, but absolutely. The Barbra, TheBarbra, The Barbra. It's on Cash App too. But yeah, if anybody wants to send a girl to Miss America in style, go for it. But we're doing it up. I'll be posting lots of pictures. My goal is to win and make them have it here next year.
Ooh, oh, that's great. Okay, so real quick, and I know we're over time, and I know your time is valuable. Is there any way for us to be able to watch it?
Yeah, there's going to be a live stream. If you go to MissGayAmerica.com, they're live streaming every single night. I think it's like $20 a night, where you can get the whole thing for $45, something like that. But it's going to be MISS, not Ms. MISS.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Because y'all are not married.
Mm-mm. No rings, baby. But we ain't women either, so I appreciate all of the opportunity to talk to your friends here at Secular AZ. I enjoyed reading up on that and seeing that there was an organization that sort of looks at the same way I do. You know, the less religion, the better. But I do have to go. I've got
yes.
But it's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's a pleasure to see you. Everybody else, thank you so much. See me when you see me. If you see me and I don't see you, say hi. And
yeah, that's it. Everybody, thank you so much. Thank you, Richard/Barbra. I hope you are successful, and I might just go ahead and have to check this whole thing out. So you can go ahead and take off real quick. I'm going to talk about an event that's happening over here at the Capitol. Bye, Richard. Thank you. There is a drag. So if you're outraged about these bills that are coming up, these bills that don't solve any problems that actually exist, and you think they're ridiculous, there is a protest that's going to be happening January the 22nd at 1 p.m. So not this weekend, but next weekend. And there are ways here that you can help. If we could put that link up in the chat for folks so they can access it, that would be great. Yeah, if you think that all of this is as silly and ridiculous as Richard/Barbra and the rest of us do, first of all, go support Barbra and also support the drag community and the LGBTQ community who's sick and tired of our legislators who are not focused on what actually affects us most as their constituents. So thanks, everybody. I hope this was a little bit more uplifting of a Friday talk than has been in the past. We've got great programming that's coming up, so I hope to see you all in the future. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.